You are listening to Within Tolerance, a podcast for machinists by a machinist. I'm your host, Dylan Jackson of Protein Machining. And this week, I am happy to welcome two guests to talk about our book club this month and get some updates. First one, Alex Kern, the man with machine after his own name. And second, of course, it wouldn't be a book club without Chris Zappettini.
I'm here.
So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Alex, let's get an update. It's been, a handful of months since you've been on. How have things been going?
That's a difficult question. Overall, pretty good, I would say. I don't know. Changes. So you said I was last on. Oh, that was recently, yeah, for the Kern. Yeah, so since March, you said it was March, right, Dylan?
Yeah.
I was last on in March with Mickey. So I came close to making a change, but I didn't.
That's a good foreshadowing, I guess, for the book that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, right. Change management. Well, so, and I ended up, I think I told you guys this. I'm pretty sure I did. Pretty sure you were all in the loop. Just you two. Obviously, maybe not all the audience. Definitely not all the audience. But I ended up, I don't know. I'm trying not to overshare, but long story short, my title changed and I was sort of, I don't know, for a while in a weird place where I'm like thinking in my head, like, I shouldn't be machining anymore. I'm supposed to be like directing and stuff like that. And it was pretty challenging. It still is challenging. For a while, I think I just tried to be somebody who I wasn't. And it was, I don't know, it kind of weighs you down a little bit, especially with like the whole imposter syndrome thing that, everybody talks about. That's a real thing. If you don't feel that you are the man, then you are gonna like pay the price of feeling like you're not the man. I don't really know how else to describe it, but we've been pretty good at work. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
That's a pretty good way of describing it. And probably if you felt like you were the man, then you probably shouldn't be in the role because you'd be like, I'm the best. Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Just do what I need. Yeah. Just do what I say. We'll be fine.
Well, so exactly.
And that's a really good style of management.
It's a weird thing. So once you sort of, I don't know, everybody's different, but basically, if you guys can't read between the lines, it's pretty much I got promoted into something that I didn't feel like I necessarily earned or deserved. But, looking back, it's absolutely a good thing. I think a lot of the stuff that I just love to complain about, it's like, okay, well, guess what? Now it's your problem. So that's kind of a good thing. You get a lot more just general sort of, maybe not necessarily respect, but people listen to what you say more. So that's good. Those things are kind of all happening. We're making a lot of really cool, small, but, incremental changes for the good with what we're doing. I can definitely get into any kind of details or examples, but how did you start? All goes with the book. This all really goes with the book.
Yeah. So how did you start? Because that is kind of the shut up move from any higher manager is like, all right, bitched enough about this, fix it. So, as someone who has worked there for so long, where did you start? Where did you even go down that route of we need to fix things?
Well, it's not necessarily, I guess that is the word. It is we need to fix things. It's a loaded question because there's essentially what we did. And if you listened, I think I described it on the first time I was on with you, Dylan. I think I described it where we basically created a business within a business. It was a more or less a clean slate. So we were able to sort of build the team that we wanted and make the way of working the way that we wanted, things like that. So a lot of the other departments, or unfortunately we do have departments, a lot of the other people were kind of just some people would point a finger and wonder and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, now we're fast forward 7 years or something like that. And now it's sort of all coming together and, we're here to talk about this book about change. If there's one thing that I have learned over the years of being frustrated and being impatient, it's like, dude, patience is really important. You don't know what you don't know. Like some people just come out of the woodwork that you're like, man, I would have axed this person like a long time ago if it was up to me. And I was like, 20 something years old, like completely clueless about really just completely immature. And voicing that opinion, like, man, these people suck or whatever negative things. And then like before you know it, I mean, actually it takes a while, but eventually you're like, these people are actually some of these people that I used to kind of, wonder about are like flourishing and stellar. And it's the environment. It's the environment that they're in. And I feel like, I don't know, it's just super slow. So we're kind of actively going through, when we go to talk in more detail about the book and stuff, we're going through a lot of these things and it's really interesting. But like on the technical side, we can talk more about culture and business and stuff like that. But on like the cool stuff side, there hasn't been a ton. I'm just messing around more with the Kern.
How's that been? Because last time I think you were just starting to get it running, and I don't think you had your Aroa yet.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think we may have just got it. I think we had just got it. We went through some tweaking. I'll say it was tweaking.
Yeah.
But eventually, through enough help from different people, we kind of got everything really dialed in, and it's nice. It's pretty reliable. The machine's been pretty reliable recently, which is good. I mean, not pretty reliable. It's been 100% reliable recently. So we're there. Now it's a matter of like, it's a kind of a puzzle. It's a nice game where if, we're high mix, low volume, and it's fun to try to maximize the pallet pool. So like you were talking about that fixture, it's not only that one, but there's another one that my coworker Dave is making. He designed it, and actually it's not only him, it's also Ed who made the gripper profile. But basically we took a Lang gripper. We made our own like Lang jaws, so we have the stamping unit, which is the bomb, and we put it on a pyramid. So now we have like these pyramid fixtures. We just got to make them. But so we have a pyramid fixture, and we have like a traditional tombstone, 4-sided tombstone, which is what I showed you guys. I think I might have showed you the pyramid one too. I don't remember. But
yeah.
So how many pallets do you have in the mix now?
So I think that we only have, well, let me back up. So our pallet changer has 55 locations for ITS 50 and 45 locations for ITS 148. I think we've got 35 pallets on ITS 148. We don't have all 45 yet. Soon we will. It's getting to be a pain in the butt to like switch back and forth. We bought those pallets that'll take the 52 millimeter, the 52 millimeter Lang pattern, or you could put your 5th axis vise on there or whatever. We switch back and forth from like, oh, I need to put this vise on or put this tombstone thing on, whatever. It's a pain in the butt. That's another reason why I ended up making that interesting fixture that I was talking about, the tombstone. But we've got that many. And then on the small side, we've got a bunch of those. Everybody hates them, but tell you what, they're the bomb. Those little Chinese vices for like $90 or whatever they are the bomb. I have no regrets. I don't like circumventing, the high-end Swiss or German stuff, or even American. If somebody would just get their head on straight and make the right stuff, call out to whatever that one company is. I forget who's the
Mate.
Yeah. Shout out to Mate. Yeah. Can you make a small thing that'll either be integrated ITS 72 or ITS 50? That'd be awesome. Anyway,
we have a line with them because of the project that I'm working on in Nevada is all Mate stuff. I have like 48 of the vices or something like that for 2 machines. Yeah.
They seem to do some pretty cool stuff. I like some of the innovations that they've added to this system overall. Like, it's nice little design tweaks. It's good stuff.
Yeah, same.
Anyway, it's fun to try to just maximize what you can do with the system without changing too many things. There's so many variables. Just what are the common denominators, and I guess leverage the common denominators is the fun part. It's hard. It's really hard.
Do you have to keep hold people back from pushing you to do too many changes all at once? Like maximizing before you have a baseline?
Right. We don't really have to hold people back, but I have definitely learned that lesson here on actually the parts that I showed you guys. It was those little bone plates. So those came from a 1-up fixture. It just held like square stock. And if you guys, if everybody listening can imagine basically just a bone plate going horizontally and basically clamped at both ends. So your piece of stock is just clamped at both ends. That's what it is. So there's a lot of features on it, and it's a whole family of parts, and there's a lot of toolpaths for what it is. And I found that all made sense eventually. After I'd done maybe 6 or 7 part numbers, it made sense. I was like, you know what? These cycle times just aren't competitive. I'm not happy with it. I'm still not, to be honest, still not thrilled, but it's kind of just what it is. But so I went back and optimized it and changed a few things, more than a few things, changed a bunch of stuff. So now, you guys know the drill. It's a pain in the ass to go back and change all the other ones and keep updating things. And, be cool if you could just push defaults, have a default kind of push defaults in through a template or something. That'd be wicked cool.
What are you programming with?
We're using Fusion.
Okay.
Yep.
So how much do you actually have to chase cycle time if you're running a lot of this unattended? Where is that break even point for you where you go from saying we're way not competitive to well, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to be sleeping when this is running?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's sort of and that's kind of how I ended up where I was. So I was like, you know what? It's not going to matter. Let's make a good part. Let's get it to a point where it's, not complete garbage, but, serviceable, and let's run them. It was, I don't remember what led me. I think just because we have standards on our jobs. So we estimate it should be this much. And I'm like, wow, I'm way not even close to that. And, and it was pretty interesting. A lot of the reason was cycle 32 on high to 9, where it's the smoothing and your tolerance and stuff like that. It just slows the machine down a lot, a lot of surfacing, things of that nature. Anyway, how much are we pressed for cycle time? It's kind of maybe it's an ego thing, and then, I know this, that once we get enough in the mix, is going to matter. If we're talking about on a plate, a 4-level plate. It was, I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, that is way not good. It was let's just call it 90-minute cycle time or something. It's a lot.
Okay. Yeah,
it's significant cycle time, and when you've got 22 of them or something like that to make, it adds up, especially if you can go from 90 minutes to 60 minutes. So we're talking significant time. And when the machine is fully loaded or fully booked, I mean, yeah, we needed a second machine on order or on the floor at that point. But at that point, you still want to try to maximize. So it was kind of we just gonna reset the standard here and make all these things kind of default and move forward with it. So still programming new ones, and that was what I showed you guys. That was a new part number, so it's working good.
Yeah, it looks like it was cooking.
Yeah, it's a little sketch. That's a sketchy sketchy situation because you can't simulate that. So to fill in the audience, what the fixture is, again, it's a 4-sided tombstone, and basically, maybe I'll post a picture on Instagram.
Well, so for people who
feeling generous,
for people who haven't seen it. If you imagine bar risers on a motorcycle or a bicycle, and then the piece of bar that is captured between those bar risers, that is what this fixture looks like. He's holding round stock between bar risers, basically, and then 4 sides of a tombstone.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's adjustable, so we can put anything up on that. It's just a dovetail, so we can mill the carriers, the top jaws. We can mill them to any size for any size material. Probably going to have a solution that integrates the Lang stamping. There's like ball detents and stuff built in, so it's spaced out evenly across a zero, kind of like a zero plane on the fixture. That way everything comes off that plane, centered. So it's pretty cool. But I talked about it on the episode with Mickey. We were talking about the palette program where you can do like a 3D rotation, and you can do basically patterning your program with Heidenhain. So what I was talking about, which was sketchy, is that so you put your program on the palette. So the palette file for a 4-sided tombstone looks like, call up your palette. So for example, palette number 7, and you tell it that it's in the machine. And then the next line is a program line. Your next 4 lines are program lines because you can put 4 different programs on your palette. And you have a preset, like your work shift, you have a preset attached to each one of those programs. So it could be all the same preset, which wouldn't really make sense. Where you leverage it is you have 4 different presets. So you tell it where you're machining. It's wicked cool. And it does work. It's basically just patterning you don't have to pattern it in Fusion. It's slightly less optimized, I would say. We haven't really figured it out yet to make it. So when I say it's not optimized, we're doing like 4, it'll do 4 tool break checks. So it'll like, let's say it'll rough and then go and come up, go check the tool and then go to the next part, rough, repeat. So it does that 4 times. So it's not optimized, but it's very flexible. We can do a lot with it. So like you can tell it to skip. So if it's a 4-sided tombstone, if you don't have a quantity that's in multiples of 4, you can say on that last tombstone, I only need to run 1. So you just have your first palette line, your first program line. You say, yep, machine this one. And then the next 3, you skip them. You just put it to skip. So it's like really cool. You can skip over stuff, or you could run the next 3 on another part number and just super dense, like wicked dense, which is nice.
And DCM can't simulate that on the control. It's just too much rotation.
We haven't figured out how to simulate it because it's switching presets. I think you have to have the active preset. It'll simulate based off of the active preset. I don't know enough about it. I've just kind of been trusting lots of things. It's kind of sketchy. It's fun though. It's working. Credit to Heidenhain for making that, whatever his name is, Matthew Weindel, or Michael Weindel on YouTube. He made a good video about it. Good webinar. So awesome. You can set it all up yourself if you have Heidenhain and you're curious about it.
Sick.
Well, before we go over to Chris for an update, 2 things. No more fires, and how's the Hobx running?
Good questions. No more fires. No, fires are bad.
Good.
Hobx is good. Since we got the Kern, it's crazy. You kind of don't know how much capacity you have until you have a machine like that can just run, especially if you have cycle times that are, not 3 minutes, or if they are 3 minutes. I don't know. Anyway, so the Hobx is still going good. There's, knock on wood, there's been no problems with it. It's pretty awesome. We were at the Kern thing, which was awesome, a couple weeks ago, whenever that was. And apparently we're still like the only customer in the US that has done anything with Hobx. So
seriously,
that's the word, something along those lines. I could be wrong.
And so you're using it
get on your stuff, people.
In air quotes.
Start supporting poor Hobx Lang people. They're nice.
Well, that's awesome. And you have 2 of those now, right?
We actually have 3.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we have. Wow. Oh, so no, that would have been on. I don't know if I ever updated anybody, but we did get a third VM3 that's exactly the same. We have the Hobx for that. We have not had the need to actually put it in. So if my boss is listening, sorry, dude. All that cash is just sitting there. We need just. Yeah,
it was in the budget.
We'll make it work.
It's fine. It's fine.
Time to sell more bone plates is what that means.
Yeah.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. It was there. The money was going to get spent anyway. It's better to have it and not need it. Whatever. Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, Chris, We had a big update from you last time, but what is going on now?
I mean, still in a pit of despair, so that's cool. That's fun. But I was just in the UK for like 2 weeks after I got last I was really fired up about the project that I was working on. Somebody reached out to me and they're like, "You're very angry on this one."
Really?
Rightfully so. I mean,
yeah, I was really upset. I mean, there was lots of reasons for me to be upset. That was like 2 weeks after my mom died. I don't even remember most of anything between like then and now, really. But yeah, so we once we finally got all that junk worked out, and then I went back the next week, and it's like such a trip because it took like 4 weeks to get the first machine up and running and in production, and then it took like 3.5 days to get the second machine up and running from nothing. There was like none of the pallets were populated, there was not a tool in the machine, and yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's one of those things that's like, it seems like an accomplishment. Like we set up like 40 tools and got the fixturing going for all 10 pallets. And it was a brand new part number that was similar to the other one. And by the end of by Thursday morning, I started on Monday, but Monday was a really bad day emotionally. And so I didn't really do a lot. But by Thursday afternoon, it was in production and running, and it's been running since then. Hasn't stopped, which is cool. And it's like, that seems like it was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was a good pace.
That's killer. Well, so I'm very happy that happened, but I don't want to gloss over your trip to the UK either.
Oh yeah, I was going to get to that. And yeah. So I went to the UK to I had already had the trip planned to recover from burnout, and I almost didn't go because of this project and other stuff. And then, other things happened, and I was like, oh, I gotta go. And it was half of a mistake, I would say, because I was still supposed to be there. I cut the trip short by 3 weeks or something like that, because I was very isolated and alone, and was initially first couple of days I spiraled out of control emotionally, and it was very hard, and it still is really hard. But that being said, I did some cool stuff. I hung out with Simon a couple times. We got dinner a few times and coffee once, and we were with Matt Hill of Evolve, who we need to get on this thing because he's got a very interesting story. And the first night, yeah, I have his number. I'll give you his number. You could hit him up on WhatsApp. And we had dinner on the 3rd or something like that, and it was 4 hours in the middle of nowhere in this old ass pub. And Simon texted me and was like, "Watch your head, it's a fucking Hobbit door going in there." And it was a really tiny little door. And then and part of the reason I was spiraling out of control emotionally was on October 8th was my birthday, and that was just a really weird mental situation, just grappling with that whole thing. But I luckily had lunch with my family, my cousin and his wife that live over there, so that was a good situation. But more or less I was I can't be here. I've got as much out of this trip as I could for the most part, in terms of recovery. And then I had dinner with Matt and Simon again at this place called the Pie Pub, which was incredible. And then fucking Matt hit me up and was like, "Do you want to go to the Alpine F1 facility on Thursday?" And it's yeah, I fucking do want to do that.
Yeah, is that even a question?
And, yeah.
Is the Pope
and that
Catholic?
Dude, and that was a truly mind-blowing experience. Because you think about it, and it's obviously there's a lot going into that team and that sport. It's just it is an engineering marvel, and you get in there and it's this place is huge, first off, and there are so many people in there. It was nuts. And the cars weren't there because they've been traveling. They had some cars there, but not the cars there. But it was crazy. Like their machine shop had to have been like a $10 million machine shop. Easy. Like they had a bunch of, like it was all GF, like the PU 500s or whatever. And it's like so many of them. And like they're a bunch of hypermill programmers. And like you see how they test the cars and like the contraptions that they can hook up to like components of the cars and like simulate track conditions and like get information off of it is like insane. And the wildest thing about that whole thing too, well, and then we did like a simulated pit stop or whatever, change the tire, which was like a very weird experience, mostly because like I didn't know we were going to do that. Matt didn't know we were going to do that. The guy who was touring us around, Jackie, just takes us into this and he's like, hey, can we like do it real quick? And he didn't like, they're like, we have to do this now because there's an actual group coming, like an actual tour group.
The real people.
Yeah. So like, let's go. And it's like it's like all of a sudden they're handing me gloves and like safety glasses. And it's like, what are we doing? And it's like, you're going to change a tire. Then they hand me the gun and it's like, what? And it's like, so, and you guys are going to race and do it. And it's like, okay. And I don't know. We did it like, it's like something hilarious, like 6 seconds. And it's like, yeah, the fastest time that week, I think was Ferrari. Yeah, I think it was like Ferrari, like 1.8 seconds or something to change all 4 tires and get that thing out of there.
So I just looked it up really
wild.
quick. Just to put things in perspective, the average or the budget cap for F1 every year was just recently lowered to $135 million per year.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you see these facilities and you're like, yeah, okay, that's why there's all these people and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like
But
it used to be upwards of like $180 million a year or even more than that.
Well, and so they're really trying, like from what I understand, they're really trying to like rectify the situation because they put the budget caps in, but all it's done is like kind of lock in the stratification because now a lower team can't get up. Like they just progress at the same rate and they're just always forever apart from each other. And like they try and fix it with like the constructors' points or whatever, like the worse you do, like the more time you get or whatever. And like you can spend more money on kit and all this other jazz, but like it's I don't know. It was a really like that was like a really cool experience, like for sure. Highlight of the trip. And the crazy, like one of the wildest things is like Alpine's like a mid-pack machine, or mid-pack team. Mm-hmm. So like if you look on a map at their facility and like it's big, but if you look on a map at their facility and like Mercedes facility, Mercedes is twice as big. And then Red Bull's like twice as big as that. To be fair, Red Bull's also doing engines in there. And like most of those, like Alpine is, I think, doing theirs in France and AMG does theirs in Germany or something like that. So their engines aren't on site, but Red Bull's like a huge team. I mean, obviously, like it's kind of boring this year because it's like Max is going to win.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
he's starting in P6. Like he won.
Finishing first. Yeah. I know everybody I've talked to that's just like, put your hand up to the screen and blot out number 1. And then there's the real race. And that's the fun stuff to watch is like second through whatever.
The disqualification this week was very crazy. That was very interesting.
I missed it.
Because like, so Hamilton finished P2 and got disqualified. Because I think there was the rear, some plate was too low to the ground. I don't know, it's supposed to be like, they have like some margin of error. I read the rule. I don't remember it. I'm not like that into it, but like him and Leclerc were both too close to the ground and, they both got disqualified. So like everybody jumped up a little bit. Yeah. And then I got back. And then the other part of the UK was I got a bunch of tattoos, which we already did this show and tell. Like my throat, I didn't get my hand. I got my throat, my chest, and my knee down in the UK, which is cool. And then I got back and I did the me thing of grinding myself into dust. So I flew back to the States on the 16th after I spent the weekend with my family. And then I drove down to New York City on Tuesday and got my hand tattooed. And then I drove to Poughkeepsie after I got my hand tattooed and saw the Servin boys. Yelled at them for a little bit, tried to help them out. And then I went home and went back to Boston. And then Wednesday morning, I packed up my car and then I drove to Dallas to see my cousin. And then I drove to Arizona to see my sister. And then I drove up to the Bay Area to get my mom's ashes. And then I drove to Nevada to help my customer. And then I hit Boise. So it's like 4,500 miles in 6 days or something like that.
You're a beast.
It was too much. Like, cause yesterday, as soon as I stopped moving, like I have like this, I like to call it like shark rules where like you can't stop. Cause like as soon as I stopped moving, it's like, oh, I was subconsciously grinding myself into dust to like avoid emotions or whatever. Cause like yesterday, I was a wreck like all day once I stopped, and better today. But like yesterday was a really tough day and it was very interesting. But, and then went to my customer on Monday, the same one that I was doing the project for, because the day that I got back from the UK, I get this email that was sent to me by not the company, but somebody that was on the email that's like, call me when you get this, because they crashed the machine hard, like kind of hard. They blew up their probe. And we found out like kind of what had happened was somebody there forgot how to start the program, how to start the machine. And so instead of like, there's the Matsuura, like it's a pallet machine. So like there's a program, it's 9991 or 9901, but like we change it to 9991 or 1 or whatever, because it doesn't conflict with anything. And you just start with that always. And that just like, that checks the pallets in the machine. It checks the tools for the program on the pallet, blah, blah, blah. And it just like, that just runs it in cycle. And somebody forgot how to do that for some reason and just started like grabbing random shit and went into a folder that I didn't even know really was on there, because like all my programs are in a folder on the data server that it's the program number with the rev, they're the part number with the rev, and it has 2 programs in it. Op1 program, Op2 program. That's it. So that's the other safe place to start, is with one of those. But he just grabbed something random, and then he grabbed the I don't know, like this weird one, and it had a G10 line in it that wiped out the first position of the second operation. And it changed the Z by like 6 inches. And they ran a bunch of first ops. And then when the second op came in, it went to probe, and it just sent the probe 6 inches down into the top of the fixture, and it blew it up, which is pretty tight.
Oops.
And yeah, sounds like your fault. Totally.
Well, I get this email that was like,
definitely blame you.
Why did he program it this way? And then we look, and they're like, I don't know why these programs are on there, and blah, blah, blah. And then when I was there yesterday, I'm like, what was the program that crashed it? And they like, or that made the change. And that program was from like June 13th. I didn't even start talking to these guys until July. Like, so this was their program that they left on the machine or whatever. It was just this very weird thing. And I was just like, and I just don't like being accused of things. Like, why did you do this? Like, this is operator error 100%. Like, get out of here. But so I got there on Monday, like the probe in, made sure it worked, like some safety in the program a little bit more, so that if it were to happen again, like it has the G10 lines to like repopulate the work offsets, which like that was like a plan, but it was just running. So it's like, we're fine now. It should be okay, but it wasn't okay, obviously. And now, as far as I know, it's been running since. I mean, it's only been like a couple days, but they haven't hit me up and told me that it hasn't been running. And so now I'm in Boise.
So are you done with that project?
No. I hit a like solid stopping point, because like the project was supposed to be finished before I left to go to the UK, but their models were fucked up, like really fucked up. And so it took like half the timeline to make a good part. And then after we made a good part, then I was off for like a while for like bereavement, and then I came back and they made the parts bad again. And so we had to fix that situation. And so I sat down with the owner of that place, and they agreed. They're like, the timeline has missed, like we've missed the timeline because we didn't provide the correct information, which is like crazy. That almost never happens, Because like we've been in this, like Selway and I have been in this exact same situation where they gave us bad models and they're like, well, this is your fault that it's not done yet. And it's like, but we didn't have all the information. So they agreed, like, so we made some changes to the project. So instead of doing 3 versions of one part number, we're going to do 2 versions of one part number and 2 versions of another part number. And instead of doing half up front, half when it's done, we're doing progress payments based on milestones that I created that are advantageous, like especially were advantageous for me at the time to get some fucking money, you know? So no, it's not done. Like there's still a lot of fixturing to do and like a whole other, like 2 whole parts to get going.
So you dropped a lead, I think. You are in Boise, but also all of your stuff is now in Boise.
That is true too. Yes. My machine is here in Boise. I have this cool book next to me. Hold on.
Cool book. Something about change?
No, it's the like articles of incorporation for the Idaho company that I started.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah, that's remember you mentioned that.
Zappettini Consulting Incorporated, an Idaho company. So I'm just like going full. This is like I guess the hard launch of like going all in on Idaho. Yeah, it's just like so far it seems like I've been like resisting it being over here for like a year or so, and it's caused me nothing but heartache, really, personally and professionally. And it's just kind of like very serendipitous too. Like this company that's kind of close to where my house is in Massachusetts, we've been talking for like months about a project. And they just like, we quoted blah, 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 blah. It's very something similar to what we're doing that we did in like Arizona. And we quoted it. They asked us to requote it. We requoted it, went silent. And then I reached out to them today and they're like, we're going in a different direction. And it's like, cool, perfect. Like everything now is like basically West Coast with the exception of like, I got to go see Easton whenever his lathe shows up.
Yeah.
Right.
And
it's not Kimura.
So, yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense though, too, because, you know, whether or not you decided to specialize in it, you do a lot of gun stuff and there's a lot of gun stuff in Idaho.
Yeah. That also is like, that's a personal point of contention because I don't really like it that much, but I mean, it's something that I unfortunately like, I am kind of locked into it because I've done a lot of it and I'm kind of good at it or whatever. And it's annoying, but you know, here we are. And it's, yeah, like I just sent off a quote today, 2 quotes today for like that, like combined for like $200,000 or whatever for both of them are for gun stuff. It's just like, it just is what it is. And like, I just kind of, it's like separating the art from the artist. Cause like, you know what I mean? Like, it's very funny. Cause like the tattoo on my hand is like I was saying is from a Kurt Vonnegut book, Slaughterhouse 5, which is like an anti-war book. And it's all about like his experience in the war told through a fictional character and like how he is processing his PTSD that he doesn't know is PTSD. And like that whole amalgamation is based like, or that whole situation is around like him experiencing time in a nonlinear way. And like the whole thing with like, I don't know. Oh yeah, the whole thing that happened with like my sister and all this other stuff earlier this year and blah, blah, blah. It's just, I don't know. But yeah, there's like the long and short of it is there is a lot of gun stuff out here and we do a lot of gun stuff. And yeah, it just is what it is.
Pays the bills.
Yeah.
I mean, from what you've kind of showed a little bit of, it looks like you're pretty good at it. So
thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I can make
All
a
right,
part.
boys. Let's get into the book. So the book this month was, or this many months, I don't know, whenever we get around to them.
3 months, the book has been
Leading Change by John P. Kotter. Chris recommended this one. I did not expect it to be what it was when I first started. I think I told you, Chris, that like I expected something very different. Like I thought it was about like change management, as in like, oh, here's how you document a change in your ERP, blah, blah, blah. And like, It was not at
I
all
would have
that.
never read that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I honestly, if I'm being completely honest, whoever read this one did not do it any favors. Like I found
Yeah.
it so dull. Like this is one of the
Yeah.
few that I was like, kind of wish I had read this and not listened to it
Dude,
because
and it's
struggling
only-
listening to it.
And it's only like a 4-hour listen, and it's like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, get on with it, man.
I
Yeah,
feel
so
like there
I
wasn't a
listened
lot
to it.
in it.
No, there's not.
Yeah.
And like I listened to it
I
over the
think-
last 2 days, and I was like,
Yeah.
I would find myself like 30 minutes had just gone by in the book, and I'm like, I don't know that I listened to any of that. And like I'd go
Yeah.
back and listen to it. I'm like, well, I guess I didn't miss much, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. The first time I read it, I was like, I don't know, it was just it was a struggle. So I read it on
Mhm.
paper, and
Yeah.
it was a struggle.
Was
And
it?
I'm just like, I just found myself reading like it was high school all over again, like reading like looking at the words, but you don't know what you're reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, a couple days ago, I started like going to open a page and look for something random that's interesting. So it's like there's some interesting stuff in it.
Yeah,
It's
so
worth it.
To give the listeners an idea of what this book is about, this is not about committing changes to your ERP. This is about how to get an organization on board with a major change. Like they mentioned engineering changes to a large product or culture changes or whatever. And the 8 key steps that this book goes over are establish a sense of urgency, create a guiding coalition, develop a vision and strategy, communicate the change vision, empower employees for a broad-based action, generate short-term wins, consolidate gains and produce more change, and anchor new approaches in the culture. And I know, Alex, you just said that you're going through a lot of this, which was, very kismet that this was all happening at the same time.
All right, Grandma.
What's kismet? That's a word.
It's like serendipitous, but it's like that's like some shit you'd say in like the 60s. There's like a Shirley Temple movie or
that's
something
so
called Kismet.
Yeah. The
There's
real definition is destiny or fate.
Yeah. There's a movie.
Good
I
word,
think.
Dylan. Good word.
Yeah. It is a
apparently.
good word. Yeah.
And on that note,
So I guess one thing off the top, I agreed with a lot of this. The only thing, and maybe it's because it was like just the chapters I was listening to, I'm not sure I agree with the whole like push culture change till the very end.
What do you mean by that?
Like he says in the last chapter, like, oh, you do all these 7 steps and that's when you start changing your company's culture. It's like, I feel like that the culture change needs to be like 1A, 2A, 3A, like, a continual improvement across the entire book.
Yeah, I think I see what he's mostly getting at though, which is like some of the first, like half of the first 4 phases are essentially just like getting people to like be down for the cause, like that's what it seems like. And so you can't necessarily be actively changing the culture when you're still trying to get people on board with the situation. But that being said, you're right. To save it till the very, very end, it's like you're just like, it's like you're building, here's a good one. It's like a fucking Christmas Vacation when he puts all the lights, up and he's like, and then the lights don't come on. That's what it's like. And then he finally flips the switch and then it's like, oh yeah, we did it. Nice.
Yeah. So in the first chapter, he goes like why organizations fail. And it's basically just why change in organizations fail. And it's like the inverse of that. So his error number 8 is neglecting to anchor changes firmly in the corporate culture. So like if you don't anchor them, if you neglect it, if you neglect how important it is, to anchor that firmly in the quote unquote corporate culture, I guess then when Chevy Chase goes to turn the lights on, it's just brrr, and whoops, it didn't work. And
boring.
Maybe that's like, I see what you're saying. These are definitely in order, right? But like, I agree. This one is almost in every step of the way. Like if you're cooking, you need to add, salt and pepper and whatever else, like all the time, like at every layer.
Add an ingredient, salt to taste.
Yeah, put some salt, right? So I kind of agree with you there. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I mean, the point he made in 8 alongside that was, anchoring, like you said, And that you do need to do, because his whole example was like, oh, I saw this company that went through this big change, and then the guy who led the change left the company, and all of the managers started devolving back into their old ways. And like that, I can totally see. And I think we've all seen in companies we've either worked in or seen from the outside.
Or actively done ourselves, kind of, where
that, sure.
yeah, it's like, oh, we're gonna be doing this thing, and it's like, okay, and then you yourself don't commit to the change that you're implementing, and it doesn't go anywhere because you're like, oh, I got too busy, and so I'm not doing.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I feel like I do that as well. Like you're on the hiking trail in the woods, and you go and look like, oh, that's kind of an interesting possible path over there, and you kind of go explore it for a little bit and get excited, like, oh, look, there's a cool waterfall, and then like you're like, well, I don't know, I can't really swim very well, and I can't actually climb over these rocks, so I'm just gonna go back this way. And it's like, I feel like a lot of little things that kind of you get interested in, the little shiny objects. It's good. I encourage myself to do that, encourage people to do that, but I guess be ready to just say, no, we're not ready for that yet, but keep it on the back burner, like go down the waterfall next year instead.
That's a real general superpower that I think is like a learned skill for a lot of people, is knowing when to, like, what is the right thing to pursue right now, and like what is the right path to pursue right now, and when do you cut bait and just be like, no, not right now. We're not ready for this, Like you see, I mean, people that try and implement automation with a crew that don't understand automation, and they go like whole hog, like custom right off the bat. And like, you just have a bunch of people that are like, I was talking to a salesman earlier, like last week or something, maybe 2 weeks ago, about they were putting a robot in, and the guy was like, I'm faster than that robot. And he's like, I know. And the owner was like, I know you're faster than that robot, but guess what? That robot's going to do it the same way every single time. It's like, you're going to be faster in this very moment. But are you going to be faster than it in 6 months? Are you going to be faster than it in a year? Like consistently?
Are you going to be faster than it at midnight tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to know? You want to know? Go ahead.
It's not about like, it's like, you can do it, but what else could you be doing? And like, or like the mindset of like, oh, that thing, I could be better than that thing. It's like, that change allows me to level up, is like really the awareness, I think, and like the fit, like the anchoring is like these changes, and like kind of creating a dialogue around all of these changes are going to help everybody level up and do cooler stuff than what we're doing right now, rather than just like stagnating. And some people like to stagnate, and those people got to go.
I heard one of the best ones like that I've heard is wire EDM, right? Wire EDM. Oh, don't use the auto threader. It's faster if you just cut and thread the wire by hand.
No.
What a loser. Yeah. Person's a loser.
Seriously.
Yeah, why use the tool setter when I can touch it off with paper on the table? It's so much faster.
4-inch block.
I did have a customer do that to me though. Like they're like, oh, we got to get this part set up. They like brought me in. They were like, okay, you have this UMC in the corner. We use it mostly for prototyping. Okay. They cleared all the tools out and cleared the table, and so we could start from scratch. And it's like, hey, so I start putting tools in, and the batteries are dead for the tool setter. And it's like, do you guys have batteries for this? And they're like, no. Or the probe. We don't use the probe because we're prototyping. So it's faster. It's faster if we don't use those things. And it's like, the fuck are you talking about? How do you convince yourself that edge finding is better than probing, and faster and easier and makes more sense, and like touching off with paper is better than fucking the tool setter? Like, what are you doing?
What are you on? We interviewed a younger guy who was the same shop for a very long time, and that eventually came up in the conversation. That's how they ran their like newer Haas's. They're like, well, we don't use the pro. I'm like, dude, obviously I didn't say anything. I didn't really like beat him up about it. I'm just like, well, that's really interesting. And one thing I enjoy about interviews is you try to read beyond that person and like try to imagine them and their element and like what their comfort zone is. And like, wow, dude, your comfort zone is to not use the probe.
Yeah. Well, like,
and like the people around you aren't questioning that. What the hell kind of shop is this?
There's
Like,
a two, like,
I don't get it.
the other aspect of that too is like, oh, you're not a curious person. Like, because you have, like, that's in there and available to you. And somebody was like, don't do that. And you're just like, okay.
Yeah, like,
fine.
Great. That's going
like
to be,
sick.
we're going to get lots of innovation. That's from this guy.
It's like he's where he needs to be, which is fine. But like, he's not, like, you're not going to put him on the Kern and have him go to like do work, you know?
No.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, there's so many people that are stuck in their ways. Like, one of the guys I program for locally, I love him. Like, he's a great guy, a good friend, but he's got a Haas without a tool setter and without a probe. Like, it's just too early. It's like a 97 VFO or something like that. But I showed him, man, it must have been a year or two ago, like the little tool setter I built, and like also the Edge Tech ones that you can just buy, because I found out, like, I can't remember what happened, but he like broke a tool during one of my programs and then was like, well, how do I reset it? I'm like, what do you mean? How do you reset it? He's like, well, I set off the top of the block with a piece of paper and the top of the block's not there anymore. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you shouldn't be doing that. That's why you should have a separate place on your table that you are setting tools, and then a Z value in your G54. And I showed him how to do it, and I showed him at my shop and all this stuff. And like, he still to this day is like, nah, I'll just set it with the paper. It's how I always do it. I'm like, all right.
It's like, cool. Yeah, tight.
How does somebody, like, I guess I wonder how somebody like that, like, what does their business look like? Is that their sole source of income? Is he just making, like,
honestly, probably
crazy,
wildly successful? Way better than us.
like I think it goes. You guys definitely have more exposure to this than me, but like, you know, maybe just the how good are you at machining aspect of it is just, you know, maybe that's like a quarter of it, right? It's not that big of a deal.
You're being way too generous. Like, you basically need to just know how to turn a machine on, and like, if you can sell your ass, you're gonna make money. Like, the skill aspect of it means fucking nothing, dude. Like, I will stand by that all day, every day. It's nice to be good at what you do, but it means nothing in terms of like, and like, not nothing, but like, relative to the other aspects of the business, like it's not being good
directly
at something
correlated to how much money you make,
and to success at all. Because I know
you can be the best machinist out there and make no money.
Yeah, I know. Like, me and I, like, right before we hopped on mic, with the main like sales and marketing guy, we were having a conversation about these dudes locally, and like, these guys stumble over like millions of dollars, and there's a fucking asshole. They're pieces of shit, like total losers. But like, I'll tell you what,
feel about him?
He has so much fucking money. It's like, how are you convincing people to do this? Like, this is insane. And that's where like, you could be really, really bad, but if you know how to run a business and how to get customers, that's ultimately what's going to drive your success overall. And
yeah, so does that, sorry, go ahead, Chris, finish your thought. I was going to say,
like, the last little bit of that is like, I bet you, because like, if he's not stressing about being better, he's got it, you know, like, there's no stress. He just does, like, he's not programming. Dylan's programming for him. So it's like, he just calls this guy. He's like, hey, I need programs. And he just does what he needs to do. And he just makes parts and makes money. He's ultimately like, I think about this a lot, but like, that dude's winning. Like, cause he doesn't care. He's done. He's just making money, and that's it.
Anyway. So it's kind of a good segue, like, back into the book, because there's this
you need more rage,
you know,
what is the rage
yeah
segue?
Well, no, it applies. So there's the one part early in the book when he's talking about knowing your competition, and I really like the idea of that. And like, I wonder who's our competition. We make medical devices. I would like to think that man, I don't know. It's just hard. So that guy who's touching tools off with a piece of paper or whatever, he must have a lot of competition because he's just a general kind of job shop guy. Or maybe he's not. Who the hell knows? But like, how do you even know who your competition is, right? Like, how do you know if you're good compared to your competition? Based on what metrics? It's such a weird thing to me where it's not like you've just finished a round of Call of Duty and like you won, right? You don't know what your stats are. Don't know how you know what your stats are, but you don't know if those are even the same stats that other people are using. And you definitely don't know what their stats are. So like, it's this weird thing of you think you're good. And like that guy, he might think he's winning, but going to the first thing is like, is he complacent? Is he just waiting to be kicked to the curb because there's 10 other shops that are coming around and not using a piece of paper to touch off your tool?
So that actually brings up an important point for you and for people who are listening who aren't shop owners. Like, how removed are you from how Arch sells you guys? Like, do you even know what marketing material you guys have? Or, if like somebody asked a marketing person at Arch what your core competency is, like, what they would answer? Because like for me, at least, like it's my own company. I know how I sell myself. I know how I sell my company. But for you trying to instill change, I imagine it's kind of hard because you aren't the one selling your company. You kind of just are maybe selling yourself as an internal company, like you said.
Yeah, I don't know how we really sell it. I mean, obviously we go to like some spine shows and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. I haven't been yet. Maybe someday I'll be able to go to one. It'd be kind of neat. But we honestly don't know. I mean, we've had a lot of the same customers for a long time. It's nice. It's nice when we see some new ones come in. And especially it's nice to see new customers within existing customers, new segments of their business. Like these companies are big companies. So there's a lot. There's kind of a lot
like
there.
Stryker and
Right.
those jokers.
Right.
So like, would your competition then be outsourcing versus like them using their internal shop?
I guess in some cases, I think so, but a lot of OEMs don't really try to insource everything. Some of them have and failed. Some of them have and failed and then are trying again. So yes, we do. That's kind of, in the back of your mind always like, well, what happens if we put too many eggs in this basket and they decide to really actually insource and do it? I don't know. It's weird. The other shops in the area. I can tell you who they are. And I don't know how good they are. I don't know, now that we are under a larger corporate umbrella, we do get to see other companies, our sister companies under that umbrella. So we can kind of compare ourselves to them. But even then it's still like, you're not doing the same work. It's really not apples to apples. I don't know. But yeah, like knowing your competition, and I'm a pretty competitive person, like very competitive. It's, if this is possible to do it this well, that's the expectation, is to do it that well. And yeah, it's just, you don't know. It's like you're constantly just striving for your personal best against yourself. Boring.
Yeah.
Sure.
Personal fulfillment. Ugh, gross.
Yeah. Who cares about that?
Yeah.
I'd rather just beat somebody else.
Yeah. So I need to grind somebody into dust.
Yep.
Make them wish they were never born. Otherwise, I'm not having a good time.
Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
So, Alex, I think I'm going to lean on you pretty heavy in this book review because, like, for me and probably for Chris too, a lot of these things are very easy when you run a small company. Like, my coalition is me and Brad, and the only people I have to convince are me and Brad. And to communicate the change, I look across the desk and I say, yo, we're doing this now. Hold me to it, kind of thing. So like, I've definitely, reading this gave me it stirred up a lot of feelings from past companies that I've been to where I've tried to instill change and struggled or failed. So more than anything just made me a little frustrated. Like, I've tried some of these things and they didn't work because I didn't try all of them. But you mentioned that now that you're in a more managerial position, you're starting to go down this route. So what have you used? What have you found that works? All that stuff.
Yeah. So the sense of urgency, number one. Well, really, number one, I think, is complacency, right? So complacency, kind of don't want to talk about too much, but it dovetails heavily into what I was just saying, which is like complacent based on what? Like you have to know that you're complacent. You have to know that you're falling into that kind of spiral. And anyway, leave it there. The sense of urgency. I think that was number two, something like that.
Yeah, so I think the number one was sense of urgency, and I think complacency was the counterpoint to that in that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, I can't really go in order, but what have I done?
I mean, without like naming names, but like what have you used to create a sense of urgency?
Yeah, sure. So,
because like listening to that chapter, there was a lot of it that sounded a little overboard, like, oh yeah, do this really well or we're going to fire you. Like that's a really good sense of urgency, but like it also creates a really toxic work environment. So what have you used to a good carrot without a really terrible stick behind it?
It's a nice way to say it.
It's always carrots and sticks, baby.
Well, I think deadlines are an easy one, where you can become complacent, right? So one of the things that I think every company struggles with is accurate planning, especially at scale. It's pretty tough when you're more of like a project shop, or you're doing projects. You guys probably know projects are more difficult to estimate than like production. Yeah, exactly. Like stuff changes, et cetera. So, well, you tell the customer your quoted lead time and you got to hit it. But I guess one way to sort of you get complacent, where you get used to, like I was trying not to say too much, but you can kind of get used to being late all the time, just like you can get used to being ahead all the time. So, we're always delivering early and we just kick so much ass, or we're delivering late and we got to catch up. But you eventually get numb to it. You get used to it. And then that one thing comes around where it's like, you know what? We can't be late on this. We got to do it. And that's kind of you're not really establishing that sense of urgency. It's kind of like the customer, if there's this,
like,
it's
you really got to stop
like,
fucking this up for us. Like this is not a tenable situation.
Yeah. And it's kind of wild because a lot of our customers they ask for something at a certain date, but they don't always measure us based on that date. It's really hard to explain, and I'm definitely the wrong person to explain it, because I'm always like, dude, if I said the date, like that's like step one, right? It's a process. This is step one. I'm going to give you this quote and here's the date, and I'm going to hold ourselves accountable to that, because it's kind of, you're competitive. You're trying to do it. You don't want to lie to yourself. Not that we are. It's just a different game. It's weird. It's hard to wrap your head around.
So it's like you have a quoted date, and then like they have a customer need date or something like that they're more holding you to.
It is bizarre. I really don't understand it. It's kind of like it's almost like they don't know when they need it, if that makes any sense.
Well,
it's
from
like
what I've seen,
here's our forecast, and here's how many units of this thing we need, and it's like by this, it's like a quarterly thing. There's a lot of different ways that our customers do it. I don't quite understand any of them, to be honest.
It is because there's a lot of moving pieces. At least like I haven't done a lot of like medical like you're doing, but in like semicon stuff, it's because they're like, well, we have this giant thing that we need to make, and there's 50 companies making all of these things that at some point need to come together and do it. So like if anybody starts slipping, it makes the whole thing kind of slip. But also like they've built buffer themselves into your date, and you've built buffer yourself into your stuff. It's kind of like a critical chain thing, but like externally and internally. And they're like, oh, okay. But it's this weird thing where like we've all gone to like if you take it down to like a part level, where you make a part for somebody and it's like, oh fuck, I'm out like a thou. Then you call them and they're like, it can actually be like it could actually be like double the tolerance, but we don't do that for this situation, you know? And so like they hold it tighter because they would like it tighter, but they don't necessarily need it to be that tight, you know? And so that's where like there's this unwritten rule between you, the vendor, and the customer that like when they say 4 weeks, they're good with 6 or 8 or whatever it is, you know? And you guys kind of learn each other that way. And then sometimes rocks companies is that they say 4 and you know that means 8. All of a sudden that doesn't mean 8 anymore. And now it means 4. And it fucking throws people off because they're like, oh, our whole process is built around being able to do this in 6. Like, and we're always 2 weeks late, but you were good with that. And it's like, well, we can't do it now. And that's right. Like, that's the complacency.
Yep.
That's the complacency. And then now there's a sense of urgency that's no longer like, that's not artificial, but it needs to be there. But like, how are you going to rectify that situation without losing your customer? And also like blowing your whole world up.
Yeah, let me find it really quick. I'm pretty sure I've got it sticky noted here. There's like a graph. He's got a lot of nice little charts, but there's a little chart about like sources of complacency and a sense of urgency, something like that. Here it is. So go ahead, Chris. What are you thinking?
I'm gonna say like one of the things like when I was at South Bay, I had like some issues where we just couldn't get to the feedback loop was like just not working. And so like we like essentially like quote unquote invented our own like PCDA thing where we called it like VIP, just like something that we could show the customer that was like very simple.
PCDA.
Or PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act.
Oh, okay,
act.
Right.
That like whole cycle of doing stuff. So like you just kind of, the idea was to like do it in an iterative loop to be able to get through like some of these complex parts very quickly to like find out where we're like failing essentially. Cause that was like a big struggle was like we'd make like 1 billion parts, which for them is like 50 or 100, but you'd get to like the very end and you're already late and you find out you're all bad kind of thing. And so doing like smaller batches and things like that to like get to, okay, like we did 5 and those 5 are good. But when we went to 10, now those 10 aren't good. Like we started to see fallout. So like we have 5 good ones and we know we have 5 good ones and we have 7 good ones, but we had 3 failures. So like, what did we change to do that? And blah, 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 to like kind of like hit deadlines and like make a change that wasn't like too crazy. It's mostly just batch size, but allow us to like, I don't know, on an engineering side, it was fun. It kind of worked, I think. They're still doing it from what I understand.
Cool. So he's got sources of complacency. I think this is a good one. I'm into this. So I'll just read off the sources of complacency. And this is good for conversation. So in no particular order, one of them is the absence of a major and visible crisis. Another one is too many visible resources. Another one is low overall performance standards. Another one is too much happy talk from senior management. Some of the other stuff is kind of wordy.
Let that one breathe a little bit.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I mean, it's and you kind of find yourself. I found myself guilty of it at some point, and it's kind of just like, what's your quote unquote management style? But
shit sandwich, baby.
Do you, right. Do you sugarcoat it? I don't like sugarcoating. I think it doesn't do anybody any favors. I think things are black and white. Like it's not personal. It's just this thing is either good or this thing is either bad. That thing could be a lot of things. It could be, the part, it could be the process, it could be whatever the environment, it could be the behavior of the person. It's not personal. It's just like, this is the thing. But I really don't like is when people are like, oh, you're all doing a good job and all, like, but you look around and people are like, you think you're doing a good job? Like, because like,
if you think you're doing a good job, then I think we have a problem. Like our definition of good is very different.
Well, right. So that goes back to like the competitive nature and like the competition. So is our competition be really that good? So, are you doing a good job based on what, right? So I don't know. It's a weird one. It's the type of thing where I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff, maybe too much time, but
I think that one is very person subjective too. Like if you're a good manager, you don't manage everyone the same way. And like there's some people
right.
that need a bunch of positive feedback to continue doing a good job. And they still might be fantastic employees, but that's just like what they need to hear. And then there's some people who are just give me the information, good or bad. I need to know where I stand kind of people. Mm-hmm. So like that's, I think, a fine line where you can overpraise certain employees, and that's when they're just like, all right, you're blowing smoke. I don't care. Now I'm going to get complacent. Or you can under promote people who need to hear that constantly.
Right. I agree. So the absence of a major and visible crisis, I had asked earlier, Dylan, was like, where do you start, or what did you do, or, something like that. And small stuff, but you look at, so the other one is too many visible resources. Okay. Well, you look at the absence of a major visible crisis in combination with too many visible resources, and you go, well, sounds like we can make a problem here, even if it doesn't exist. Like we've got all these parts to make, for example, and I see that you guys aren't really like, your goal is not to maximize the amount of hours in the day. Yeah. Your goal isn't to set the counter on, for example, on a Swiss lathe. I think I mentioned this to you guys on our WhatsApp, and, kudos to all of our Swiss lathe crew. I say that like genuinely. Basically, something started with a simple question and was basically along the lines of, hey, do you know that we have, I don't remember the exact number. You know that we have somewhere around 6,000 of these parts to do? No, I didn't know that. And did you know that, they were due all by December, but we had to move the date out because the machine isn't running enough? No, I didn't know that. What do you mean? And the right people are going to go like, WTF, I wish I knew that kind of thing. And this is really, again, hopefully this isn't an overshare. This is nothing against our management or anything like that. It's just like, I think it's just it's a no-brainer kind of thing. So what that led to was questions like, hey, all right, so what's prohibiting you, or what's preventing you for setting the counter on this machine, setting the part counter? So, just let it run unattended until it hits the counter, setting the counter for the entire bar, the entire 12-foot bar of material. What's preventing you from doing that? Oh, well, chips or this or that, or maybe we'll start a fire. Like, okay, let's say chips get wrapped up. Okay, what's going to happen? It's going to alarm out when the sub comes to pick up the machine. Okay, or pick up the part. Okay. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. Like, is it gonna blow up the machine? Are we gonna have a machine down the next day? No, probably not. Okay, I'm willing to take that. And anyway, just working through a simple problem like that has taken a machine work center from like, maybe a 10-hour a day work center. Like we're trying to maximize it, really. Like machine's still running when we come in, and that is major for what we're doing on this project. Like we're making good strides. So kind of just, I don't know, that raised a sense of urgency, because now there is a problem. There was, remember, like the absence of a major invisible crisis. Well, it's not a major crisis, and it wasn't visible. Not really a crisis either, but hey, now we can do it. Now we're getting all those parts done like how we should. Now that's spread. And I think one of the other things he talks about in the book is like basically using those examples as like disciples, and kind of having that like flywheel, and you start it, it's going, and eventually you just can't stop it. And I don't know, it's pretty cool though.
Yeah, I think that's a common one to see in machine shops too, where like management thinks that, oh, would this operator need to know that his job is being pushed out? Like unless it's like due tomorrow and they're on their ass, like there's no in between, it seems like. And I've seen it personally too, where just communicating the status and the priority list to everyone can really change the course of things, of people saying, oh, well, if I'm running 3 machines then, but this one's a priority 1, I'll stay on that one. And unless somebody communicates that to the group, they're just it's another day at work, and I'm just going to run my 3 machines and, make it whatever.
Just do what I'm told. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's complacency, right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Low overall performance standards, I guess, kind of plays into that. Like, again, based on what, right? So at some point, somebody's got to come in there and say, the head chef's got to come into the kitchen and say, this food tastes like shit. You got to do better. I don't care if all the customers are eating it. I really don't care. It's bad. We need different customers. We need, this. I don't want to eat this. I wouldn't feed this to my mom. So let's go, make it better. So I think that even if you're doing good, even, with the too much happy talk from senior management or any of the other things, you gotta question. You kind of just got to keep questioning everything. And it gets people thinking. It's like that constant information.
It's important. It's really important. Yeah, I think it's complacency, and it's also just ignorance too, a lot of the time, like in shops. Like if I'm running 3 machines and one's got like a 2-minute tack time and one's got a 30-minute tack time, but I don't know that the 30-minute one's the priority, that one might sit when it gets done because I'm sitting there just busting out 2-minute parts. And until somebody says, hey, the 30-minute ones need to ship tomorrow, the 2-minute ones have a month and a half on them, it won't know to prioritize what I don't know as a priority kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe set up the machine that's busting out the 2-minute parts to do the 30-minute parts, something like that.
Right, exactly. Or pull in somebody else to make sure that, hey, when this 30-minute one stops, no matter what, the second it stops, it gets run or something like that.
Yeah. So on a more positive note, and kind of going way back on the update and some things that have happened recently, and kind of in this whole thing is urgency. And we think I told you guys this. It doesn't really matter. We did a rush job for a surgery, custom implant, and poor Tina from Kern, and I'm blanking on his name. I want to say is, sorry if you're listening, Matt, I think, from Fisher. I remember his name. They were both at the shop, and they were going to look at something on the machine. The machine was running fine, but they were there to like check a couple things out and check my email. I saw this email that was like something about a custom implant, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I like opened my email again, and then I opened my email again like 20 minutes later, and I'm like, wait, hold on. Oh, that needs to be done like now. We got to go now. And it's like, okay. So said to Tina, I'm like, Tina, sorry, you're gonna have to wait. So the sense of urgency was like very high, and the amount of teamwork, like basically the amount of everything that you would want, was very high, very good. And we were able to make this implant, just go make it, and get the second one. We got the second one programmed and the second size programmed and made on schedule. Everything went on schedule. We shipped them in like a day or 2 days or something like that. So it was soup to nuts, like quick, fast. It was everybody did the right thing. And that was a really, really big win when you're like that much closer to changing somebody's life who, we get to see maybe some 3D scans or x-rays or something like that. We don't know the person, so I don't think it's violating any HIPAA laws or anything like that. But you just know that this person's like whack, like a little bit off. Their spine is super bent. So it's fixing them. And then a few weeks later, the surgery has happened and everything is good. And the customer reaches out and says, hey, you guys are great. Good job. Awesome. This has made a big difference. So that's kind of a positive thing surrounding the sense of urgency. And it kind of goes along the lines of a few weeks ago, I was talking, you might remember, I was like, started saying something about an ambulance on my way commuting to work.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, I'm just going to stop. Okay. So here's what the ambulance was. I'm weird. If you guys don't know, I'm pretty weird, especially with like metaphors and stuff. I think about things like, I always try to make connections. That's why I use the kitchen reference. Like, it's very similar to cooking, but this metaphor that I kind of witnessed was, I've been driving this commute for how long, and I know what it is. It's pretty much just your standard, right? Standard operating procedure. You drive to work every day. It's basically the same stuff every single day. And this one morning, an ambulance got on the highway. And it was really interesting. The ambulance didn't have its red and blue lights on, but the ambulance did have the yellow lights on, which I've never actually seen yellow lights on an ambulance before. But either way, it was an ambulance and it had yellow lights. And I guess my takeaway was like, I was thinking it was right behind the ambulance at one point. And, maybe only going like 5 miles an hour faster to stay behind the ambulance. And eventually I'm like, I don't really need to speed this much. Like, I'm not just going to follow the ambulance. But I could have followed the ambulance and I would have gotten to work faster. One of my observations was like, even if you can see the ambulance, like everybody was going faster. So it was just interesting. Like everybody was going faster even in front of the ambulance. Like maybe they're driving a little bit more aggressively to get out of the way. So they're speeding up. People behind are speeding up just because everybody around them's speeding up. It's like, okay, well, you're going fast, so I'm going to go fast because the ambulance is going fast. And then once the ambulance is gone and there's enough people in front of you, then people start going back to the old way of just like, regular old driving to work. And I don't know what it means, but it made me think like this is the sense of urgency, right? Once the ambulance is gone, then nobody has any idea that the ambulance was ever even there, right? So it doesn't matter. Now, what if you had a big chain of ambulances? Could you make the whole highway into ambulances, right? Like, where does it stop?
Well, and that
like,
goes
what's
along with
the right distance,
that goes along with the other theme in the book, which is that organizations like to rid themselves of foreign matter and go back to a state of balance. Like, and you said, the ambulance left and then everybody slowed back down because it was the status quo. And so fighting that state of balance that people want to return to, like change is not comfortable and people will always try, humans are pretty lazy, just standard be lazy. And so they try to go back to what's comfortable versus, work a little bit harder continuously for a while.
Yeah. Path of least resistance always.
Yeah. So fighting that is incredibly hard.
So it's interesting though, because the path of least resistance is following the ambulance. And the ambulance is what's heading the charge, and they got lights and sirens, and people know to make a right of way. Kind of like the implant that we did, that custom implant, right? Like people could follow that easily because there was a clear path. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's tough. It's kind of like a wake in the ocean or like a wave. Like there's an undercurrent, but only right by the wave, and like it'll pull you along, but if you're 20 miles away from it, you can't feel it at all. So finding that sense of urgency every day is definitely tough. What strategies have you found to kind of improve everyone's sense of urgency? Because I know I struggled with that at my last job too, of like, you try to gamify it, like, get people more working together and more like, all right, let's see how much we can get done. Let's see, if we can hit 100 parts today. But that only works on some people and it only lasts for so long, and people have an off day and then it kind of percolates. Somebody misses their 100 and then 2 people miss their 100. And then it's just like, it's tough to keep that going and to keep re-innovating that every time.
100%. That's been, that's kind of like the goal, right? Like maybe not sense of urgency is the goal, but like what you're describing is the underlying reward of that is like all the good things that everybody wants, better production, better throughput, whatever, just more competition. What have we done? We've tried to gamify it. I could talk for pretty long about all the different ways that we've done that. I think it's really difficult.
Do it.
In the, yeah, right. You don't want that.
No,
I'll fall asleep.
What has worked the
I'm
most?
ready.
Like you tried a few things, it sounds
Talk
like.
about
So what has worked the best? Because I know
I also want to know
what's
what
crazy
really didn't work.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Give me the high highlights and the low lights. What has worked really well and what has not worked well?
Yeah, I like the didn't work question. That's a really good question because it kind of like helps me get a perspective too. I'm not sure what didn't work. So I guess what's current is the easiest thing to discuss. And I'm largely talking about we call it the development group at our company. And that's where we have the Kern and the Haas's and the more manual machines, the ProtoTrack lathes and the the CNC knee mills and stuff like that. It's kind of like the prototype-ish lab thing where we just develop stuff. So we've got currently is we've got a whiteboard. We've had a whiteboard. I can still remember the first conversation that I had with my bosses at the time, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys know what a Kanban board is?" And they're like, "Well, I know what like Kanban is, and in manufacturing speak, like TPS." And I'm like, "No, it's not that. Like, I know what you're saying, but it's not that." So it's like, just simple, like, whip or to do and whip and done, right? My dad's a software engineer. He's done that forever. Part of the Agile Manifesto and things like that. So he's all about this stuff. He kind of has always been like, man, I wish I could just like be in manufacturing for a while because it's so cool because it's so tangible. When you're done. If it's intolerance or not. Like software, he's like, you never know when you're actually done.
Right. Yeah. There's no bugs in my part. It's either right or it's not. Yeah.
Exactly. Like a piece of metal. There's no interacting. So anyways, we've had this board for years and it's taken many evolutions. It's actually really interesting. I have some photos and videos and stuff like that on my phone of the board. And it's kind of like I always lived by this mantra of you need to be able to do something manually before you can fully utilize or fully leverage an automated solution. So
100%.
An ERP is a really, really good example of that. Like you need to understand the mechanics of a lot of things, or maybe not an ERP, but like, I don't know the technical terms, but
I think you're onto something with that.
Just like an ERP or an MRP. Like you need to understand what your workflow actually looks like before you can map it out in an MRP.
Yeah,
if you can't do it, if you can't, go ahead.
As I said, a lot of people end up dumping the first ERP they implement because they didn't they at some point, like they did the first implementation, it ends up being spreadsheets and the ERP because they didn't know how to implement it the first time. So they use spreadsheets to offset it. And then they go to the next one, which is so much better. But really, it's just they're able to do all the changes up front for the next ERP system. And then it's good. It happens all the time.
Exactly. You said that very well. So it's translated. It's basically the second go around, they know what they actually need because they understand the mechanics that they needed. Know what they needed to do. So yeah, I think of it like you shouldn't be using a table saw before you can just cut a board with a handsaw, right? So I've always been kind of like that. I think it's important to understand what it does. So our whiteboards, maybe to a fault here, and this could be arguably like what has gone wrong or what isn't good, but we're still using whiteboards. This is 7+ years into this thing. And we're not leveraging the scheduling module of our ERP to drive the whiteboard. So anyways, to go back to what we've tried for the sense of urgency and stuff like that and to gamify it, where we're currently at is we've got a schedule, a kind of the way of working is the week kind of starts on Friday. So we've got our whiteboard is, if you can visualize, our whiteboard is columns of work centers and it's multiple whiteboards. It's actually like 3 whiteboards next to each other at this point.
Nice.
There's two decent sized ones and then one that we like added onto the side of a filing cabinet. It's kind of cool. So we got like this the little addendum. I'll send you guys a picture.
All right.
So if you can visualize columns, the left column, like it starts off with like programming, things that need to be programmed, and then like things that are ready to be like put into the schedule, just stuff in the backlog. And then there's what we call this week's goal. So it's like stuff, we do a lot of assemblies. Most of what we do are assemblies. But it'd be the top level, a picture of the top level assembly. So like, what's a common assembly? I don't know. An RC car, right? or a model or something. You've got the picture, you got the box, you know what you're building, and there's like all these components. So then to the right of the column full of top level big picture items, you've got all the work centers that those different components are going through. So we've got to do it by drawings. Everything is a drawing. So there's, did I show you guys the Miro thing? Did I show you guys any screenshots of that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
So Miro?
it's a fucking behemoth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually pretty neat. And talk about doing it manually before you automate. It's like we're literally using wireframing and Miro to make a board. It's like a board, and you've got columns. Columns are the work centers. So you've got like Kern and Haas. Haas. We have X, Y, and Z. Those are our machines. We've got another CNC machine, and then we have this weird dynamic that's like people. There's a certain people that are running. They might just be anyway. It doesn't matter. Got the work centers, and that's how you schedule the work. And then there's columns, and then there's rows. There's 5 rows. The rows are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So what we do is every Friday at 2 p.m., our group comes together and we look at the backlog. We do is kind of like a retrospective. We say, how did we do? Try to hold each other accountable to the goals that we set. If you still got jobs sitting on Wednesday or Tuesday or Monday and it's Friday, WTF, what happened? Why did we not get that done? What happened? Maybe there's a good reason. Maybe there's a bad reason. Either way, we need to talk about it. We need to try to get to the core, get to the nuggets that aren't really attacking the person, but like fixing the process, which is very challenging. So we do that. And then we kind of reschedule everything. So we can take the end of the day or 2 p.m. on Friday, we do the scheduling session. People can kind of think about what they're going to do if they're that dedicated, they can think about what they're going to do, all next week over the weekend. We've got the full schedule laid out, thought out, it's questioned. The group leader will be like, hey, is that really realistic? Based on these things. This is all stuff an ERP would do. But instead of the ERP just being like some robot thing that's telling the person what the schedule should be, it's the person telling the team, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And the team telling the person like, you know what, dude, yeah, that would be really cool if you could do that, but that sounds actually really extreme and there's no way. Like, what's the cycle time? Oh, it's an hour and you've got to do X amount of parts. Like, there's no way you'll be able to do it in that time. You and what automation system? Anyways, that's kind of one way that we've tried to gamify it. It's kind of worked, but really depends on the person. Certain people are good at estimating. Certain people are bad at estimating. The hardest part is on a daily basis. We have a morning meeting, and the hardest part about it is like, okay, we can see that we're behind schedule, right? Ahead of schedule is good, kind of. Actually, both of them are bad. You want to be dead on schedule.
It's all a trap.
They're both bad. So like, but being behind schedule is worse than being ahead of schedule. So yeah, we're behind schedule. Okay, what do we need to do? Now we need to take action. We need to get other people involved. Maybe this person's doing too much. Maybe they bit off more than they can chew. Maybe they can't run 3 machines and 2 of them are setting up or something like that. It's basically just this constant learning thing. And I think as long as everybody's learning, it's good. But can start to feel like we're getting complacent if we're not holding each other accountable to like failure, kind of, sort of, or just great success, right? It's challenging, and it's a commitment to keep it up. We've been doing it this way. This is the longest that the board has, like, I forget where I was. I think it was at the beginning of the year. It might even been like when maybe when the last time I was on here, but I was away on vacation and I came back. I was away for a while. Yeah, it was the beginning of the year. I was away for a while and I came back and I just kind of observed for a day or two our morning meeting and how it was occurring. And I'm just like, dude, this is just a freaking huge waste of time. And
so how do you run your morning meetings? Because that's been the last change I was a part of that honestly, it fell apart before I even left. I instituted a morning meeting, and some people found it incredibly helpful, and some absolutely thought it was a waste of time. And there's some things I've learned since then that I wish I had implemented, but I'm interested to hear how you changed it and how you make it valuable.
Well, I wish I could remember some of the good points that I sort of was able to base the new way off of. Like I said, I came back from vacation. I'm just like, wow, this doesn't feel right. This seems just stupid. Oh, I remember. So one of the things was I came back from vacation and everybody did the morning meeting, and then I spent like 45 minutes afterwards talking to a couple of the guys about all the stuff that we should have been talking about in the morning meeting. And it was like, details about what are we going to do on the machine, et cetera, who's programming what, like basically just the stuff that's important. And then it kind of just got me thinking we need to do this differently, and maybe we need some structure. So we never really had structure, which made it more difficult to be able to pass the ball to anybody, which I think is one of those cool kind of, I don't know if that's good or bad either, but one thing that we do have the ability to do now is anybody can run the morning meeting, because what I did was I made a structure out of it. I'm like, guys, this is bad. It's gone too far. We need to reel it back. And now we have a structure, and literally we had over the summer, it was really, really cool. Speaking of updates, over the summer we had we had four students. So that was great. One of them graduated and is time now. That's Gabe. Gabe's awesome. But
Nice.
like one of those high school kids can run the meeting. You just read the paper, and it's good. You get the group. The group is engaged. So it's how do we run it? How do we do it? If I remember correctly, it's kind of like, okay, what are the general announcements? One of the things that we like to communicate is like, if there are any meetings during the day where somebody might not be around, like if it used to be, if I wasn't around, I'd want to remember that, because I'd always forget. I'd forget to tell people, like, hey guys, yeah, I got a meeting at 1 in the afternoon. I don't know how long it's going to take. It's scheduled for an hour, blah, blah, blah. At any kind of like customer visits or anything like that. It's just general announcements. You have a section pretty much after that. So this meeting is the entire development group. It's also people from our finishing and assembly and welding department and quality there as well. Anybody can come, really. It's largely focused on our instruments. Do instruments and implants. So this is pretty much instrument stuff. So we have a section that covers what went right yesterday and also what went wrong yesterday. So that's really where sort of joke internally. I joke about it, like public shaming kind of. And it's kind of like everybody, use these words before, like everybody's safe because nobody is safe. Right? Like it's kind of like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But
I like it.
like, oh, messed up, right? I messed this up, and I am happy to let everybody know that I messed this up, because guess what? Now you guys all just leveled up because you know what to not to do.
Yeah, you're building accountability into your culture at that meeting, which is huge.
Yep. And also right? Like, did we figure something out? Did I learn something that everybody should know about? Like some stupid little thing. I care what it is, like little wins. We have a section where we used to be really, really big on improvements. Unfortunately, that's kind of fizzled out a little bit, because we like did a lot of them. Although there's another area where you can get complacent. We have a section where we talk about improvements. Does anybody, any improvements? It's just a question. These are all prompts. And then we go into any like quality issues. Did we have any parts or paperwork that got sent back yesterday? So paperwork, we're still on paper. Yes. Sorry, we're not electronic, but either way, like, and manual data entry, garbage in, garbage out. So like, if one of the most difficult things I think with the whole ERP thing and scheduling, especially that side of it, is garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have accurate data entry coming from the floor, if the floor does not understand how important it is to like put the right quantity in, do all that stuff, your ERP is not going to work. Just flat out. Like, it's not going to function. It doesn't have the right inputs. So not only, we don't really talk about that, but like paperwork side of things, did somebody miss a sign off on a travel, or, stuff like that. Like, I'm tired of hearing about it, guys. We need to make sure. I jokingly say, like, we should have a days since last injury type thing on the board of, like, days since last scrap or rework, or, parts or paperwork getting sent back. Just stuff like that, like really openly holding people accountable. Anybody, any customer, like anybody can come up and look at that. Like, that's how we operate. This is who we are. We're trying to be the best that we can. So that's kind of this, and we walk the board. So we'll go and make sure, like, things that aren't on schedule. This is the hard part, making sure things that aren't on schedule we address it. Like, it's hard. This is where personalities and egos start to come into the mix, and like, well, now people may be feeling uncomfortable thinking about it, and it's definitely challenging to, if you have that one person or two people who are like constantly late, or unfortunately, I'd never had the opportunity to say, you guys are always ahead. Why are you, you need to be putting more on your list, that kind of thing.
You'll get there. That's very
hope,
similar to the meetings that I ran. So mine were general announcements. We always had the shipping coordinator there. So he would give us like the top 5 hottest things in the shop, like the things that we're supposed to ship today or tomorrow. And we would address, like, what can we do to make sure that actually happens? The mistake I made and the solution to it I found. So I would do after that was every machinist and deburr person would be there. They would all have their travelers, and they would all say what they were working on and if it was going well, and if not, ask for help. But what I saw a reel or a YouTube video or something, and it was a guy who said in his meetings what he did is, after the general announcements and general things that everybody had to hear, he would say, all right, if your job is a green, you can leave. So like, if you're on time, if things are running well and you don't need help, you can leave. If you're a yellow, that means that you're either late or there's something holding you up, and red means you're at a full stop, and yellow and red needs to stick around and need to go through this.
That's a really cool concept.
Yeah, because it gets people back to work faster. Like, the greens don't need to be there. Like, maybe you might need to call on them because they're so far ahead that they can help somebody else, but that can be done outside of the meeting. Whereas, like, if you're yellow or a red, we need to talk about this real quick and get you back on track so you can be a green. I'm
going to take that and bring that to the team and see what they think about that, because that's been part of what I tried to do, where we have the other couple, we have quality, and then we have the assembly and welding, and those guys. We have questions that kind of pertain to everybody, just the same way you said it. And then it's like, okay, quality, that's section's done, like, and quality goes away, and like, the assembly and welding, okay, that section's done, and those guys go away. And now it's like just the people who might have the yellow or the red jobs or the green jobs. So then we could tier it down even better. I like that. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm happy to share it, because it was so many people. Well, not so many people. I got in fights with a few people in those meetings because they were like, I think this is a waste of time. I'm always green. Like, job's always running fine. Why am I here? Why do I have to listen to everybody talk? And like, granted, big picture, my argument was, these are timed meetings. They are no more than 10 minutes period. And we end at 9 minutes and 59 seconds every single time, or else. But to their point, they didn't really need to be there. They didn't need to hear everybody else's job, because who cares? They can go run their mill if everything's running fine. So it was definitely a learning thing for me.
Nice. So Alex, when you go to your team to introduce it, like, how does that, do you introduce it at the meeting, or do you do it outside of the meeting? And then how does that, like, discussion, you propose a change to the meeting, how does that typically go?
It would be at the meeting, and I would just offer the idea. Just go and ask, be like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Would this help?
Mhm.
This is kind of further refinement to what we think is already kind of refined, and see what people think. And typically I'll get pretty good response on this kind of thing. I like the, I like the word, I like thinking about like Kool-Aid and brainwashing and stuff like that, because like it sounds like a cult leader. It's weird. People are that okay with just, yeah, let's try it. Right. So it's kind of working from that regard, that point of view. It's working.
Alan
That's
Kern
killer.
strikes again.
Dome medical.
Yeah.
Alan Korn.
Well, Alan, do you have any other notes from the book? There's a lot of things that we didn't go over, but I think a lot of them are like they're very linked. Like it's like all about like it is getting people on board. Like they talk about, accurate communication of your vision and empowering employees to make these decisions and blah, blah, blah. But like at the end of the day, it is, you kind of have to read it. Like if you're going to do a change, you need to read it, because there are so many pitfalls that like we can't go over for your specific use case. That's why I kind of wanted to dive into more what you had been doing.
Cool.
One of the biggest things that we did gloss over, I think, maybe, but like that is important. And actually, I think Alex brought it up, but it's like, can't expect changes to happen quickly, like not days or weeks, but like months and years. It's especially, it kind of goes to the bigger the company is, the longer it's going to take. And also how old, like a small company that's full of old people that have been doing shit for a long time, that's also going to take a really long time.
He's like
get
talking
them to change
about
over.
decades and centuries at one point. Like,
yeah, and you're like, oh my god. Yeah. But
well,
go ahead.
Like this good.
Yeah.
He's talking about decades and centuries, and he's talking about like the big corporations, and he puts the numbers in there, which I guess is just some percentage, but I forget where he does it. Maybe you guys remember, but he's like, a 20,000 person company. Well, you need to have like 1,000 people on board with your change. Like 8,000 people? Are you freaking kidding me? That's crazy. He's probably right.
Yeah. That was the wildest thing about the book, is like he's talking at scales that I've never even. The biggest company I worked for was Methods, and that was like 400 people. And he's like talking about printing 4,000 memos or whatever, and faxing and like 20,000 people and getting 8,000 people on board. And it's like, I can't even fathom that scale at all. It's hard enough to get a 100-person company to make a change. I could not imagine a 20,000 person company, and like commitment to the cause is bonkers.
Yeah. I have one sticky note somewhere when they're talking. I think they're still talking about complacency. I'm all about the complacency. It's like it's the beginning of the book. Yeah, it's all like the only chapter I read. So just kidding. I read the whole book.
This is really good, guys. I've seen you sweating over there. You're just like, oh fuck. Ask me about phase 8, please.
Yeah. So he's talking about creating artificial problems. Like if there's no problem, make a problem. So if you want to fix people being complacent, give them something to do. Right? If there's too many visible resources, well, guess what? There aren't anymore. So it's actually kind of cool, because I didn't really think about this too much, but we've got some old legacy equipment. Sorry, we got rid of one, but Zap, maybe you want some Matsuras. Got to come back to Quakertown. But we have some that are pretty. We have some, just get the old trailer. We have some that are pretty similar to yours, but they're not really the future of our business. Not going to buy more Matsuras and put trunnions on them, and like, you're not going to do that.
He didn't think he was going to get so personally attacked today.
I'm only supposed to personally attack myself. Like, dude, come on.
So like he's talking about creating artificial problems, right? And bold moves. So, well, get rid of those machines. Just get rid of them. Unplug them. They can cut the cord. If that's what you want to do, figure it out. I don't care if it's in the middle of the cut. Like, figure it out. Cut the cord. Done.
Done.
Oh,
God.
I'm not
I've
sure I would do that.
always
Within
wanted
Tolerance
to-
does not support cutting the cord of a live machine. Just putting that out
We
there.
didn't do that.
Yeah.
We far from did this, right?
I do.
Like there's always a plan.
I do support that plan. I'm so curious as to what would happen, you know? Like, just do it. Yeah.
Make sure you're standing in a puddle of water.
Yeah. It'd be sick. Yeah. Like, just like some nice shears that aren't insulated in a puddle of water and barefoot. It'd be
Yeah.
sick, dude. And like a camera on yourself cutting it, and then a camera on the machine so you can see what happens in there too. And
There you go.
yeah. Submit that
one
to
point from the book.
Within
I wanted to make
Tolerance,
sure to bring up.
Instagram when you do that, so we can post it.
Will do. Got you, dude. I'm gonna do it now.
Yeah,
Alright,
there you
sick.
go.
Yeah.
One point from the book that I thought was really important. I just remembered two points, I guess. One was like change exhaustion, cynicism, and that coupled with the fact that you need small wins. Like, I think that that's another one of those human psychology things of like, if you don't build in small wins to your change program, you will immediately start losing people, especially if it's going to take multiple years. Like, you can't go months without a win, let alone years without a win.
Or like even a fast implementation of something, but it sucks. You know, like, oh, we're changing ERPs and we did it in like 3 months, but it doesn't work. So people are off board forever, essentially.
Right. And that's been something that I've kind of identified personally that I struggle with. It's like, some of these long goals, right? It's a hiking trail. You're on the hiking trail and not quite sure what the trail is. I guess that's kind of life, but you're not sure what the trail is. And like, so I think I mentioned it to you guys, like, if anybody listening knows what is entailed with like a true value stream map effort at a, decent sized corporation or not a decent sized corporation, it's like, it's the real deal. And I'm like, this would be really, really cool. And like, I want to do this. And this is everything that I want. Like, this is the metric, really. Like, this is where it's at, is this overall process efficiency. And, that was that little thing where I got to the waterfall and I'm like, dude, I cannot swim in this. It's like, just going to turn around, go back, and we're going to keep going up the trail that we don't know exactly where it is, but making progress. And then we're going to see another waterfall and be like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for that now. So I think that was one where instead of doing it like half-assed, we're just going to leave it and wait till the opportunity comes again. It's always there, but wait till we're ready for it, and then do it right. Like, don't do the ERP in 3 months and it's garbage, right?
Yeah,
do it right. Know exactly what you need on something like that. That's like world changing.
Yeah.
What are we reading next?
Book that you're describing kind of is Toyota Kata. You haven't read that, but it's like, it's another Toyota thing that's like, you start at one point and you're going to another point, and it describes that the path from point A to point B isn't linear, and that you're going to double back and make multiple pivots throughout the process to get to your point, and also the building in multiple wins and milestones to get like from point A to point B is actually like point A to point Z with like B through Y in there. And at each level of those points, you're going to be doubling back on yourself as things, because like the smaller chunks make it easier to like correct in case you start fucking things up.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this before, because I mentioned this on the WhatsApp, where I'm like, and it's hard to have like have that long-term plan. So back to the book, if he's talking about something that's going to take in 1 year, I don't care. 1 year is a long time to plan for. Like, there's a lot of small wins in 1 year, a long period of time. And then if you go like, well, we've got a vision, again, back to the book, a vision is a thing. That's, to me, especially in our industry, like all three of us, I don't know what your visions are for your company. I feel like, Chris, yours would be probably the easiest to have something unique. Whereas like, we're just like a medical device manufacturer. And like, Dylan, I don't know about you, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but like, this stuff is hard, and it's always been at the
it's really hard,
kind of at the forefront of like, okay, you start talking about like change and we need to do this and we need to do that. But okay, but why? Like, are we all aligned? Are we all marching in the same direction? What's the flag in the distance? What is the flag? You know, where is it? What does it mean? How do you
False
get
flag.
to it?
Yeah.
Well, and he also talks about how that flag does move like during
Sure.
a change. Like you're like, oh, I'm changing here. And then you're like, oh, well, I need to change this to change that. And then I need to add this change project because I didn't realize that covered all of these changes that need to be done. And I think that that's a normal thing and something that you have to plan for of like, oh, might need to delegate some of these things to other people.
And I guess like to that point too, it's like these things can't happen in a vacuum by themselves. It's like kind of being able to like, I guess, go high level, like very holistic view down to like a very granular level and like in and out of that zone as needed, which is a lot of words that doesn't really mean anything, but like it's so, it's so hard. Did you find a new page?
Yeah.
Are you going to start reading?
Just start reading. The role of middle and lower level managers.
Yeah,
it's the target of changes in plant.
Oh, dude, you're going to record the audiobook right now. We're going to go to like 7 hours.
We're just going to re-record it.
Yeah.
World record.
We can hit 6 hours right now. Yeah.
See how many times I can show how bad I am at reading.
You're doing great.
I think another thing I had written here was on the bold moves. It's the goal setting, right? And vision, which kind of go hand in hand. Maybe I don't know if they're the same or if they're different. I think they're probably actually different. But either way, the goal that it's stupid, but like I don't know what you guys think about goals, like what goals you set, but everybody that I know of thinks like, oh well, we're gonna have a revenue goal. You know, it's kind of the easiest one. Everybody can talk about it, but like I don't know if you guys have been exposed to. Hopefully, you can shed some light on this because I don't have much exposure. I've only really worked at 2 companies in my life, but I know of companies at a really heavy duty growth mindset, and they're like $80 million. Like for example, one of them that I talked to, know somebody at was like, I think it was like $80 million a year company, machine shop, and in 4 years their goal was 400 million, and I'm like, really?
Really aggressive.
Yeah, and
that's insane.
Well, yeah,
did it?
It is insane. No, there's 4 years from now. Like that's the goal. That's the goal. So like expanding new marketplaces, like stuff like that, just hiring people like crazy, build. And okay, that you can bring back to the urgency thing. Like, okay, you want to do that? Like, let's go. It's attractive. That's attractive to people. The F1 team thing. I thought about it. Like, how cool would it be to be on an F1 team? You know, if you win or not. You know, like I don't care. Like we're building the car. I don't care if we're just machinists or managers or whatever. But like, and if we're winning, you know we're winning. If we're losing, you know we're losing. And like, it's just cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, like I could never set goals like that as my only goal. Like I always try to set like a reasonable goal. Like that's still growth, but I want something that I can hit. Like, you know. And then I'll have stretch goals that I'm like, oh, this is like, if I can really kick ass, these are what I can really achieve maybe. I couldn't imagine how demoralizing it would be to like, be like, oh, we're 3 years running of not meeting our goal for the year. Like, what's even the point then?
Or just how like psychotic you have to be to like drive, like not like just like the tenacity that you would need to be able to like bring that to life. And like your dedication to that goal, and that goal is your only goal probably in your whole life, is like for 4 years, I'm only growing this company up to be $400 million a year. And whatever it takes to get that done, I'm going to do that. Fuck my family and all that jazz, you know. I think that takes a certain type of person pull that off, you know. Where for me, my goals, like I had a goal when I set out to make $1 million in a year. I did that last year. And this year I just want to like have money, like anything more than zero, like, and not owing people money. And then next year I just want to be able to like live my life. You know, that's like my only goal. I have like no business goal outside of like making enough money to like live my life and focus on the people in my life that I care about. Like, cause that's just a big shift for me is I don't have revenue goals. I have life goals, and I don't want to like work to live. I want to live to work. I want to work to live and go backwards. Cause I was living to work, and I don't think I gained anything from that, you know, but like, that's kind of like, so in the next 4 years, I just want to be able to like still have my house in Massachusetts, maybe own a house in Boise, and I don't know. That's it. Maybe have a dog again.
There you go. Clack.
Yeah, I need that clickety clack. I'm missing
There
it.
you go. Yeah.
I got my dog. That's my dog right there in that box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
God, dude. This is bad.
I got my mom's over here on Jason's desk, and then I got my dog back there. I left the cat in Massachusetts. He died in August.
You're killing me.
Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts on the book.
If you're not laughing, you're crying, brother. I think I like this book overall, just from like it's kind of like a quote unquote quick, like say it's more of a philosophy of change management more than like the framework of change management. If you want change work, that's ADKAR. Like there's a whole thing on ADKAR, like with books and all this other bullshit, and it's all essentially like he's 5 steps instead of 8: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. It's like, and it's the same, but it's the same thing, but it's way stretched out and like has a lot more information on the how. This is more kind of like the why than the how, and avoiding the pitfalls, in my opinion. Like, but you said the pitfalls thing. Like, I don't know. I think I've read it a couple times. It kind of keeps it fresh to give like a good, like, am I complacent? Like, are there things, am I going to get something out of this now? Because I've worked with, like, there's the things that stick out to me always when I think about this book is the guy who had his like executive team and would have individual conversations with people and then go into a room by himself and make a decision. And I have worked with people like that, and I fucking hate that so much because it's like they make a decision that doesn't agree with what anybody said. And it's like, why did you, like, it's demoralizing when they do pivot at some point to like, why did you bother with our input at all if you weren't actually like interested in it, kind of thing. And then eventually you pivot down the road to something that we had suggested, but now it's your idea. And I hate that. I never want to be that kind of guy. And so like to refresh, like keep that as a reminder. And we kind of touched on it a little bit, which is like the imposter syndrome and stuff. We all experience. I was going to say Alex, but like, who are we kidding? We're all imposters. And the thing about it is like the control and command, I think is what they said, style of management that can work, but like is a bad style of like where
command
you're just
and
like
control.
And in control, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're just like constantly, you don't allow anybody to do anything without you. And it creates this like massive management bottleneck where it's like, oh, why are things so slow? It's like, well, this fucking guy needs to sign off on everything, regardless of it, if it happens or not. But then that person gets upset that nobody's making a decision for themselves. And it's this weird self-fulfilling prophecy of like not being able to get shit done. And I'm pretty sure we've all worked with people like that too. And we hate that. But anyway,
yep,
that's what I take away from the book.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd recommend it. I think if anybody, if you just like to read stuff like this, it's recommendable. It's not garbage. It's, it's been around since the 90s. I think there's some good stuff in it.
You can tell it's written in the 90s. Just the way the way he's talking about stuff. It's like, I don't know if companies run like this anymore, but like the philosophy is still solid.
Yeah, not bad overall.
That if you're asked with doing any change in your company, you should definitely read it. Like, and like I said, it was a little bit of a slog for me, but it was also, I think it's very important.
Yeah. At least it's short. It's a short slog instead of like principles, which is like 20 hours where it's like, oh my God, dude, like Why are we talking about neuroscience right now?
I thought it was so funny listening to you guys talk about that.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the type of psychopath that needs to take a $80 million to a company to a $100 million
there you
company?
go.
Yeah,
That's the guy.
exactly.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I got the last two questions I ask every guest every week. Chris, starting with you, what did you research this week?
Research is, what was I researching this week? I don't know. Continue, like, it's just a lot of, it's like on personal stuff, it's just like coping and like therapy, shit like that. This wise, not a whole lot. I just kind of like, today was kind of like my first day working again, and that was pretty good. So like machine's not running yet, but will be soon. And then, yeah, that's kind of, I don't really have, was I researching? Oh, I saw some cool t-shirts that I might buy. I'm ready for bed with like a little sleepy bear, a honk shoe king over there. Yeah. Cause I'm very tired all the time now.
Okay. I think I need that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get us all right, some
Alex?
for Christmas.
Researching. I don't have a very good memory, so like what I was researching today, but for the whole week, I don't know.
I'll take it. What were you researching today?
So we actually had the F guys come in today. They had their nickel segment market manager from Switzerland is in the United States, and kind of interesting talking to him a little bit. He some really interesting questions, and just kind of, thing that he said that you guys might find interesting was, he's like, I'd be surprised if you didn't have a laser machine in your shop within the next 5 years, or in 5 years. So
as
like
an additive?
No, like a laser. I don't know what the technical word is, but basically like a machine that uses lasers instead of cutting tools. So for very, very, very small features, very, weird small features on parts, I guess it's a thing that's really, you guys know things are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So like, okay, when are we going to start using lasers instead of end mills and drills and stuff? So
Methods did a integration where they put a laser on a spindle for somebody. And it was like a 5-axis laser, and placed the front glass with like welding glass. And then there was some fucking joker in Utah that did it himself. What a fucking, he was a psychopath, but he did some crazy stuff, and he was doing like 5-axis laser machining with it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Insane.
My man.
Yeah. He built his own 5-axis and then put the laser on it. It was like, that was some hack together shit, but like, it's like, come across these people that are like mad scientists, just like out in the wild. It's like, who are you? And it's just like,
they crawl out of the woods.
They have a conversation with you. That's why you've never heard of them. But they're just like doing crazy shit. And then the company realizes what they have. They just lock them in. They're like, no.
Yeah. So the real reason we were talking to these guys was because we are a couple different things. We're growing, so we want to try to set ourselves up for the next, I guess, tier. Maybe not be the right word, that might be misunderstood by some people, but just the next level. And thinking about bigger milling machine, something that's automated, that's bigger, like, a C250, or that's like the easiest sell. I told you guys about that. And obviously Dylan knows a little bit about those. But wanted to talk to GF about was EDM. Our shop is a Charmy shop, like since day one, almost, if you will. Like we got some, jokingly call it, the museum or something. I mean, it's a testament to the build quality of the machines. They're all still running. It's just old technology. So I think that even the F guys, they echoed the sentiment of the industry going away, a lot away from thinkers, at least in the West, especially in the US, because a lot of that stuff, a lot of the mold work went to China, but also axis, right? Now you don't have to burn as much stuff. Engineers are thinking differently. They're not making as many parts that require EDM or sinker EDM, really. Anyways,
hard milling has come so far too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like typically everything milling has come so far. The cutting tools are good enough now that you can pretty much mill a lot of things, but there's still things that you can't. Anyway, we learned some really cool stuff. Like I told them at the start, I'm like, listen, I just want to know what I don't know. Like what are we missing? I don't, anything stupid, like maybe touching a tool off with a piece of paper is the right way. And then we've just gotten complacent and like thinking about it. Chris is like, dude, what are you talking about? But like being open-minded. Yeah, like being open-minded to like the weirdest things. So I got one, and shout out Mr. Jim Nagel. He's cool. He's like, well, you could dress the electrode in the machine. And I'm like, what do you mean? So one of the things that we do a lot is unscrews, and we started out burning the hexes in the ends, just, standard hex, but they're tight tolerance. They're like a 20 micron tolerance or something like that. It's ridiculous, really. 20 micron total on a hex. So we started out burning them, and we went to broaching them in the Swiss. Single point broach, so like a shave broach, or I don't really know what you call that, but so you have no burr, you can peel the burr off the bottom. It works, but it doesn't really work well enough. I think the tool eventually breaks down and whatnot. I haven't really stuck my nose into it yet. I don't know 100% what's going on. We might find that we're just doing it wrong, but I'm trying to be open-minded to going back to burning them. The broaching process takes a little bit of time, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, what he said was, he's like, well, you can dress the trode in a machine. I'm like, what do you mean? So what they have nowadays, and this is probably showing my ignorance. I'm not an EDM guy, but they have such good control over the spark now that they can make sure the spark comes off of the end of the electrode. So if you can imagine a hex electrode or like an Allen wrench going into the end of a screw, instead of the sparks, instead of it coming off the side of the electrode and the corners and those edges that are so precious, sharp corners, it just only is coming off the bottom. And like they're able to do this. They're able to do all kinds of crazy things, like just quick tangent, wire EDM. Imagine having a sheet of paper standing up vertically or some big part, right? They have so much control over the spark that they can like make logos it has no purpose but to show how much control over the spark they have. So I'll try to describe it, but like you imagine like a big EDM demo, just a big flat wall of metal that they're burning, and they can write in the side of that based on like different cut parameters. So like they could write your name. They could write like Alan Korn, in the side of the side of the part. It's wild. So anyways, what I learned is that you can, instead of having to orbit, now you can just basically go straight down in to the workpiece, and then you can, this is I guess something that I don't know, I guess everybody knows it, but I didn't know it. A piece of carbide on the work table and reverse the polarity, and now you can dress your electrode. So go and burn. You just burn the carbide, and now you take. Yeah, right. I'm like, what? We not hear about this? Like, what are you talking about? Right. So it was definitely a good meeting. So we might. I mean, they have some pretty smoking deals going right now for a sinker with a work partner on it, and I wouldn't mind putting the wire machine on the other side of it and having kind of an automated EDM cell. Work partner's got a ton of capacity. It's got a ton of capacity in one of those things. So that's what we researched today, which was good.
Brad,
nice.
Then the last question I ask every guest, so we can start with you. What are you working on to be a better person?
I guess like I kind of alluded to it a little bit, which is mostly just like I'm just trying to, I mean, my whole like I guess philosophy on life has changed very rapidly over the last few weeks. And so just like mostly trying to, again, just like focus on like personal relationships and just relationships in general that I care about, and like make sure that I can spend as much time with the people that I care about the most. It's like life is too short to like to just work until we die. Like I still have this like existential crisis about working in general. Like it just doesn't make any fucking sense at a certain level where it's like, and obviously the hierarchy of needs and the way the economy works and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, it's just such a bummer. Everything's such a bummer. Just trying to like figure out how to like make this work in a way that is fulfilling to me and to Scoob and allows us both to like live the life that we want to live term. And that's kind of where like I like just texting Scoob, like, what is the amount of money that you need to make in a year? Like if you could make any amount of money, what's that number? And it's like, okay, so, and then he told me, it's like, all right, well then we'll just try and make you make that much money and I'll make that much money and then we'll make some money for the company. And that's like, whatever that number is the goal. And then we both, and like, if we can do that with like working like half or 3/4 of a year, then, so that's kind of where it's at right now.
That's cool.
Awesome. I like that a lot. Alex, what about you?
I feel like I have a whole episode on that. I don't know.
Still have an hour and a half, dude. So yeah, fire it up.
Give me one thing you're working on.
He's like,
none of us are perfect. What are you working on?
Dylan's like, I want to eat, dude. I don't know. I guess trying to like be patient. Clickety clack.
Yeah,
there she is. Trying to be patient. It's tough. Dealing with difficult problems that it's like, how do you grade? That's tough. Pretty much just getting everybody to work together is difficult. Like working together with other people is difficult. I'm probably not the best person to like just be working with people. I need to probably be like over in a corner somewhere, just like building some giant contraption. Really, that's what it is. So like if I'm ever working on something, it's trying to be an easier person to be around and work with. That's definitely like my weakness is I'm just kind of a dick. I have like that's like natural, my native organic language is like, you ask me a stupid question, I don't need to answer it. You see it in my face, like, what I think. And that's a kind of an issue. It's not really conducive to like, strong team. But at the same time, I think that if you try to hide that for too long, kind of lose your mojo a little bit. And then people start to just like wonder. And it's like, no, guess what? It's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of just working on not overreacting to things, like, yeah, being patient, letting things kind of play out. It's definitely take time to happen. And another thing is like not being like, everybody knows, right? Not everybody, but my boss told me something, and I wish I could remember exactly what he said, but it was more like, I reacted to something in like a higher level kind of senior leadership meeting. And I was like, wow, I think I overreacted to that later on when I was talking to him about it. He's like, yeah, you kind of did. He didn't say that, but I knew I did. Right. And what I was talking about was something where he's like, you know what? You got to learn that everybody knows that stuff. Like, you're not the smartest person in the room, definitely, where, even though like nobody's saying it, I guess his message was like, dude, people are thinking about it. Like, don't just, I know it's hard. I don't really operate very well like this. And this is being pretty open. Like, I'm just going to say it. I don't care if everybody else knows it. Like, if nobody's saying it, then what good is knowing it? Right. So, yeah, kind of just all those like tempering expectations of outcomes and events and all that, or inputs. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
too much
super
for
tough.
Me. You get yourself to a point where it's like, does saying anything value to the situation, or are you just saying it just to like say it?
That is a point, and I know that a lot of times there's if nobody's saying anything, I'll fill the space. So that's something where I also struggle, is just like rambling.
Like,
Well, it's hard to have that wherewithal in the moment. Like, because I know I've done the same thing where like I've way overreacted to something because I'm heated, and then like looking back on it, I'm like, it was a mistake, and like all of the red flags were there to tell me that this was going to be a mistake, and like I just ignored them because I was already seeing red. Like I completely can understand.
And it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Like I started to try. Chris, you said the word superpower. I've started to try to use you. If it's getting really bad, you guys know, everybody knows, you start to feel it like in your chest, like in your heart, like at that, like the bottom of your ribs, kind of. Like you feel that thing that's like, okay, I'm going to get some kind of like physical response to this emotion. And I think you can use that to your advantage and say, well, I did it the other day to my boss. I'm like, I'm starting to feel this way. Just saying, like, I probably should calm down right now. Like, I shouldn't be this excited about this, but this is just how I am about what we're talking about. And it was a thing where he could have gotten very defensive. I think since I said it that way and kind of added a bit of a disclaimer, hey, we still had the conversation. It's like, barriers are down. My barriers are down so much that I'm getting like, too excited about it. And he's willing to listen still. So yeah, tough things, just communication really is, I guess, something I'm always trying to work on.
Cool.
Those kind of things are exactly why I asked this question, because I think that's like I have worked on and continue to work on, and recognizing those things hopefully will help someone hearing this go, oh, you know what? That's a red flag for me too. That's a warning sign in my body. And maybe I need to start listening to that, because you're not a old guy in your own shop. Yeah. Fortunately, being part of polite society means like learning your body's warning signs and getting over it. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, right on, man. Like I said, I could talk for a long time about that.
Yeah, it's one of those things like people say with like mental illness. So like, not to say that this is like a mental illness, but it's something that if it's inherent to you, it's like, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility kind of thing. So you just have to like, you can't make your anxiety everybody else's problem. You're anxious.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, like it's weird. It's almost like you kind of start to identify a certain way, or you think of yourself a certain way, and then you end up being that way. If you think of yourself as a different way, then you end up being that way, right? It's like the whole like attitude thing.
100%. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Dillon, didn't give us your updates, because I think you have news, maybe?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I will say my thing I researched this week, my advice to give on that is get yourself a good lawyer when you are negotiating a lease. We are potentially going to sign a lease here soon, and found a really good lawyer, recommended by his stepfather-in-law, I guess he would be.
Okay.
But anything big, but they were just like, landlords write the leases so to cover their ass, and there's no thought of like, I should cover the tenant's ass too. And so there were just like a lot of little things that he found that probably we never will counter, but if we did, or if we do, I'm sure glad that he changed them. So we're currently in the back and forth phase. We'll see if it works out. I am trying to temper my excitement because it's been so long. And hopefully by the next episode, I'll have something to update with.
Got that Hermely PO ready to sign as soon as you sign the lease?
No, I just want to get used to like 7Xing my rent phase for a little while first.
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty neat.
Wow.
But you're going to have so much space,
7X.
so much room for activities.
I think it's like 7 or a little more. Yeah. But granted, we have incredibly cheap rent right now and no amenities. So like we knew we were going to be paying quite a bit.
Yeah, I would say your amenities are actually like negative. Like you don't have in-unit water, you don't have in-unit toilets, you can't even barely run an AC. Your swamp cooler turned into a out vent. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So fingers crossed this all goes through, and I will share more at that point. But as far as things I'm working on, think scheduling and just like trying to find a better way to communicate that to Brad and like work more collaboratively and not keep things in my head as much has been always been a struggle and continues to be a struggle, and is something that I just constantly working on. Yeah. Oh, the thing I've been researching or working on is we got our 4th axis trunnion shelf thing up and running and finally like making parts for the first time, which has been super epic. Like the part I'm running right now on it would have been 4 ops normally and is now 2, and the second one is just like decking off the back.
So are you programming that? Like, is there like a dynamic work offset tilted work plane thing that you're using for that? Or is it just like center of rotation programming?
Center of rotation programming right now. Have the brother calls it their rotary fixture offset card, but the way that they handle it, kind of a mess and poorly documented. Devin at Lycan Manufacturing, is it kind of dialed now, more or less? Yeah. Kind of, from what I've heard, at least, told me. So I need to kind of pick his brain a little bit and maybe get my post set up for it in the future. But right now, center of rotation is working really well.
Sure, especially if you're doing first op stuff, it's not as like crazy. You're probably fine.
Yeah.
Definitely. So is the card in the machine already? Like it's already there? You just have to like get it working, or do you have to buy the option?
Well, I bought the option and have the card already installed.
Got it.
So when we got the 4th, I was like, well, clearly I need this. And then we got it. And then I started looking into it more and I was like, ooh, this is a mess.
Really? That's so crazy. It's not just like a 68.2 or whatever. This works.
No, it's like you have to feed a specific page for it and you give it values. And I don't know if they're incremental or not from like where your work coordinate is to where part you're probing is.
Okay, so
then it back calculates.
Yeah, on a FANUC that's G54.2, not G68.2, which is like it's an in between where you're like kind of programming from center of rotation, but also like not, and that's a very interesting. That's the interesting option. So there an option that would be like straight tilted work planes where you like probe the top of your part and you just fucking go?
Maybe not. I don't know if it's available on the C0. I think it definitely is, or like they at least have dynamic work offset kind of thing on the newest control now that they're doing full 5-axis.
Oh, that's right, because it was always like 4+1 or 3+2. Interesting.
Yeah.
So the struggles of a young machine.
We'll see. I'll get it working eventually, but like I said, for first op stuff, like my trunnion uses the small vise anyway. I don't have any of the soft jaw vices for that. I'm not planning on getting them anytime soon right now. Planning on doing first op stuff in there that I could get a significant amount of reduction in ops and then, do a second, third, whatever op after that. Yeah. So for what I made it for, it's working really well.
A Hobbex truck on it. I'm joking. I'm kidding.
That'd be kind of cool.
Maybe. It'd be stupid. Don't do it.
I don't have enough. I don't know that I could even fit a Hobbex hood in the carousel.
Not with that.
I don't know if it would violate the maximum limit.
Yeah.
I mean, you just cut a hole in the hood.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, you just take.
We thought about making a bigger one.
Well, then the eyebrow. That was very ominous. So we got to vamp for like 13 more minutes and get this to like 3 hours, or what are we doing here?
No, this was great. Thank you both so much for joining me. We'll wrap it up.
The instigator, Chris, the instigator, Zappettini.
Chris is like, how much time can we spend on here? No, thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. To all the Patreon members who let me send people like Alex a mic and headphones so you can hear them better. You all for listening, and I will be back next week.